6:30, I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order for
Nice seeing you.
March 27, 2025. Start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome all. I'll ask Mr. Sass and the police to take roll call.
Thank you, Mr. DiBartolomeo. Commissioner Kurd.
Here.
Commissioner DiBartolomeo.
Here.
Commissioner Green is excused. Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Hubler.
Here.
Trustee Wade.
Here.
And Commissioner Sassen here. Also in attendance is Bruce Thompson.
Thank you. Everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda. If there's no additions or deletions, I'll ask for a motion to accept as presented.
Move to accept.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Item number 1.
File number U6957, 35 mailings, 0 returned. This is a public hearing, special land use approval for proposed resale shop.
Thank you. Were there any mailings?
34 mailings, 0 returned.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present for this? Would you please step forward with your name and address?
Brandon Smith.
Could you speak up into the microphone?
Brandon Smith.
Address, please.
The building address,
That's fine.
44623 North Gratiot.
Thank you. One moment, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. If I can call everybody's attention to the screen, I've included a map provided by our GIS department that shows the property in question kind of outlined in that dashed line. This is on the west side of Gratiot, obviously south of Hall. You see at the top of the picture. This is an existing site that has a commercial retail building, strip center at the front, and mini storage and outdoor storage behind. This gentleman is looking at occupying 800 square feet of one unit of this 7,200 square foot commercial retail building with his use, which is a use as he describes, and I'll just read from his letter, a resale store that offers new and used merchandise selling electronics, tools, furniture, appliances, kitchenware, handmade items. Resale shops are listed as a special land use. That's why this is before you this evening. In application of those special land use standards, we find that the use will be located strictly within that existing retail building, which is occupied with similar retail and service uses. Obviously, the site is zoned for this use, so the use is appropriate and in harmony with the surrounding uses. From a standpoint of traffic, the use will be located again in an existing retail center. There's sufficient access, sufficient parking for this use and the uses that exist there right now. With respect to intensity and site layout, again, he's strictly locating within that existing building, will not present a nuisance to any nearby uses as all the activity will occur within the structure. The building itself will not change. No changes to the building exterior proposed other than typical signage one can expect. As a result, the Planning and Community Development Department and Administration are recommending that you, the commission, forward this to the board with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything further you want to add?
I just have a petition from everybody that was in the building and in the complex that says that they will allow for me to come in there if you guys would like to take a look at it from the surrounding areas in the complex.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so what we'll do, if you have nothing more to add at this point,
No.
open up the public hearing, and if anybody wants to speak on it, we'll allow them to speak, and then we'll call you back up if they have any questions or concerns or comments, okay?
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you.
good.
So this is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open it? You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody in the audience like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, coming up to the front then. Last call, anybody want to speak on this matter? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Petitioner step forward. Commissioners, any questions, comments to the petitioner at this point?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The items that you're going to be reselling, where do you get those from?
I do a lot of house cleanouts and I do a lot of storage unit auctions.
So you're not having people come in there and you purchasing?
No,
Okay.
no. I won't allow any consignment, anything to come in there, buying anything off the street. No.
Okay.
Well, I guess I guess it helps them to have the storage place behind you there.
Yeah.
If you're, to pick up some things. You made mention of appliances, refrigerators, washer and dryers.
Yeah.
Should we be looking in the future of these items being placed on the road for people to view, or are these items going
No,
to be
nothing will be at the
within
road.
the building itself?
Everything will be inside the building, if not out front of the store, but nothing towards the road.
Okay, so you got the walkway
Yeah.
leading into the building. That's where you would be putting washers and dryers?
No, nothing else. Nothing. No, like
Nothing on the
appliances
exterior
outside.
of the building?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
And nothing in the rear of the building, everything will be either in the resale or your
Yeah.
storage?
Yeah.
You're not going to pile up
No.
on the outside at all?
No, outside. No.
Through the chair to Mr. Thompson, if I recall, on the container in the back isn't enclosed. Is that a concern?
A dumpster
dumpster.
enclosure? I think, if this person were the owner of the property, I could see that, that's something that you could discuss, but he's merely going to be a tenant.
Okay,
So,
it's not his issue.
right.
Okay. Good enough.
So once again, your inventory comes from,
I do a lot of house cleanouts, so my inventory would come from there. Storage units, auctions.
Okay. You made mention that you had another shop on Gratiot?
I do not know.
Oh, okay, I thought I read that you were coming from, you had another business somewhere.
Nope, this is my first time doing this.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? Is there a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval forward to the Township Board with a recommendation for approve the site plan and the special land use.
Support.
Roll call?
Commissioner Kurd.
Yes.
Commissioner Hubler.
Yes.
Commissioner DeBartolomeo.
Yes.
Commissioner Green is excused. Commissioner Harris.
yes.
Commissioner, Trustee Wade.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sassen, yes.
Okay, so this is a recommending body.
Okay.
So your next step, you'll be in front of the Board of Trustees for final approval. And that meeting will be held on Monday, April 14th at 6:30 back here.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Item number 2?
File number ZM 7013, 28 mailings, 4 returned. This is a public hearing, proposed conditional rezoning from B2, community commercial, to B3, general commercial.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present?
Yes.
How are you this evening?
Good evening. My name is Craig Buss, 37824 Maple Circle West, Clinton Township. I'm here with Mr. Jonah, Ron Jonah, the architect, Richard Cervenek, the franchisee, the Bigby franchisee, and Bill Thompson from the SKL engineering firm. I thought I would just take a couple of minutes and give the board or the commission a little bit of background. We've owned the property since 1998, or roughly 27 years, as your information may reflect. We had been previously approved for a Baskin-Robbins with a drive-through. They issued a moratorium against all stores in Metro Detroit during a kind of a down economic time, so that didn't go through. And then we also had been speaking with and actually finished planning with Hertz, and kind of a similar situation occurred. In 2024, we were approached by Bigby that I'd never done business with, but it involved a kind of a new plan with no indoor seating, about a 612 square foot building, and I think everybody may has a picture of the general design of that. Our exterior would be a different exterior, but the design of the building would be the same. So that made quite a lot of sense to us with no sit down and an efficient and a smaller building. So at that point, we moved forward, and obviously it was necessary and completely appropriate for the neighbors to be brought in the loop. So I've had the chance to meet with, or at least speak with, all of the adjacent property owners. And that number is, I believe, 6 or 7 on Madeline and Pullman. And they've been, I think, quite open discussions. We just had a discussion in the hallway about a drainage ditch that one of the residents may ask about that isn't on the engineering plans, and we've indicated we'll be happy to talk about that. And Mr. Jonah, who I'm going to turn it over to, will be glad to provide, additional information. We also understand that there are the questions because of the proximity of the homes. Obviously they abut on the side that I'm mentioning. And so, as the drawings reflect, there'll be a decorative concrete wall. And most of the residents would prefer the plantings to be on our side because understandably they don't want to maintain them on their side. We kind of gave the option to have it one or another. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jonah, who can answer any questions, and we certainly welcome comments from the audience.
This is strictly right now to rezone from 2 to 3.
Yes.
And so if they want to speak about the actual rezoning, that's fine, because this is a public hearing.
Yes,
And then the next one will be on the site plan and everything else that you
Yes,
want to talk about. So if we could hold off unless you have more to add about the actual rezoning itself, because that's what we're dealing with at this point,
Yes.
we can hold off on everything else. Is that okay?
Yeah, if I understand you correctly, I mean, I'd want the neighbors to be able to ask questions.
Well, they'll be able to, because the way it's proposed, the way the agenda is reading is item 2 that we're on right now.
Yes,
is
uh-huh.
strictly for the rezoning.
Yes.
Item 3 then is talking about the structures that you're offering to put in place.
Yeah, I
So
see.
the neighbors
Yes.
will be able to speak on both of them.
That's
So
fine.
right now, we're dealing strictly on the rezoning only, not on the building or the structure. So everybody
Oh, that's fine.
understands that, okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you
All
very
right.
much, and I'll turn it over.
Thank
to
you.
Jonah.
So this is a public hearing, and so to give the audience a little idea of what we're dealing with here, right now it's B2, which is general business such as like medical offices, office buildings, the windsurf and sail like it's on the other corner. They want to take it to B3 because they want to put a Bigby's there with a drive-through. And that's what takes it there. That's also can mean, like, you can go gas station on B3, you can go car wash on B3, but they're not proposing that. But I want you to understand what the difference is between why B2 versus B3, okay?
Mr. Chairman.
And so what we're dealing with here, we're dealing strictly on the rezoning right now, not on the buildings, not on the structure or anything like that. So we'll open up the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
May I elaborate a little bit on the rezoning request?
Go ahead.
Just because this is not a standard rezoning request, petitioner has submitted for a conditional rezoning. A draft conditional zoning agreement has been provided to you. What that does is it requests the rezoning from the B2 to the B3, but it also offers certain conditions with that rezoning that are relative to the plans that are before this commission tonight. And so, as you said, it's B2 right now. They're looking for B3. With that conditional rezoning, they're specifically offering a number of items, including, and this was part of their conditional rezoning in the past, a reversion clause, I think, which any commissioner that's been here that's seen a conditional rezoning, that's pretty standard, that if it's not built within a period of time, and in this case, 2 years, it can revert back to that B2 zoning designation. It further specifically excludes adult-oriented uses that are listed in the B3 district. I know that's been a concern historically from a standpoint of both the citizens and the Planning Commission and the Township Board. When you're looking at rezoning from B2 to B3, you expand then into that realm of adult-oriented uses. And so they're offering to make sure that through this, if this is approved by the board, this agreement is signed, that those adult-oriented types of uses that are specified in our ordinance are specifically excluded. It does as well offer the specific hours of operation of the Big B from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so I guess I wanted to make sure that everybody out there was aware that it was a proposed conditional rezoning and not just a standard request for rezoning. In looking at this, I did want to mention as well, reviewed by the Planning Department Administration, the property to the west is Zone B3. So this B3 designation is not unusual for the area. The property at the southwest corner of Elizabeth and Hall is Zone B3, so it's similar. The use is obviously consistent. Commercial uses along the Hall Road corridor are similar to what we have here. I know we're going to talk about the site plan later, but I think it's important to stress that with the plan that goes along with this conditional rezoning, they are presenting screening and landscaping that goes far above the minimum ordinance requirements. And I think that's an important factor when considering whether or not you want to rezone this. Is it designed to protect the people that live to the east and to the south from that standpoint? We, the administration, are recommending that the commission forward this to the board for the conditional zoning from B2 to B3 with those items that are part of that conditional zoning agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so out there, if anybody would like to speak about the proposed rezoning, this is your opportunity to speak on it. We'll give you 3 minutes. Absolutely. Please give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, it's Janet Rajichak, 22315 Pullman. We're right behind on Elizabeth. My question about the rezoning is, now they have another building that's going to go up there. They say probably retail could be like a pickup food. Can that then at some point be considered for a drive-through?
We'll, if it's, well.
So
this
that's
is
what I'm
common. We're
asking
not
you, is the
supposed- we're
whole
not really supposed to
property
respond. Go ahead.
B3 then? So that could be,
Under B3? Sure,
right? Okay.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
sure.
Thank you. So the way the property is designed, with the size of the secondary building, it would not be possible to put a drive-through for that second building. There's just not enough room. So the only drive-through would be possible is the one that is part of the design of the site plan. And again, keeping in mind the conditional zoning says they're zoning it to the site plan that you see here. So for 2 reasons, ma'am, the answer to your question is, at least from our standpoint, that's just not going to be possible.
Anybody else like to speak? Sure.
Hello, my name is Gary Morton. I live at 22316 Pullman in Clinton Township, and I've lived there 46 years. My concern is, I misunderstood what you say. If this doesn't get approved, it will revert back to B2. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, it will?
It's because it's a conditional rezoning.
Okay.
If it's approved, not built, or if it doesn't go through all the way, it goes back to B2.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments based on the rezoning only? Seeing no one approaching the podium, then I'll call you back up in a moment. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now I'll go back to the petitioner.
Just one quick comment, and
No, no.
that is as Mr. Thompson indicated, we have a conditional rezoning agreement with a specific site plan attached. So by contract with the township, we're bound by that plan. So we couldn't, as a matter of contract, come back in
Right.
and say, even if we could physically fit it, we would not be able to put a drive-through there. And so I just wanted that to be clear, that it's not a plain rezoning where we could put any B3 zoning use in it. It would be the commercial building on the corner and the Big B. And if we violated that, we'd violate the conditional rezoning agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Any questions or comments from, Mr. Buss, Mr. Buss, sorry, would you stay up here in case there's any questions or comments from the commissioners? I'm sorry. there any questions, comments? For the rezoning only? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to forward the request of conditional rezoning B2 community business to B3 general business to the township with recommendation of approval on this conditional rezoning.
I'll support that.
Roll call?
Commissioner Hubler,
Yes.
Trustee Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurd,
Yes.
Commissioner DiBartolomeo,
Yes.
Commissioner Green is excused, Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sassen, yes.
Okay, so you know we're recommending body,
Yes, we do,
and
yeah.
so you'll be in front of the Board of Trustees on Monday, April 14th for final approval.
I think we also have to get a variance, so.
Well, we're going to go to item number 3 now.
Oh, okay,
Which will
okay.
take care of the site plan and the variance and all that, okay?
Okay, I see.
Stay right where you're at.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Sassen.
Is it okay if Mr. Jonah
Oh, absolutely.
joins me up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Has any questions?
File number ZM7013, there is 28 mailings, 4 returned. This again is a public hearing, proposed conditional rezoning from B2, community commercial, to B3, general commercial.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, is there anything more you need to add?
Yeah, so this request is for both special land use and site development plan approval. The special land use is specific to the drive-through, while site development plan approval is required for the overall site design and approval of that design for the site plan, the landscape plan, the buildings, the floor plans, elevations, lighting, all of those things. So from a special land use standpoint, what we have is as the petitioner had indicated, approximately 700 square foot Big Coffee drive-through at the east end of the site. So if everybody wants to look at the screen, I've got the plan that the Planning Commission has up on the screen. So the Big B would be located here. It is, again, strictly either a drive-through or walk-up. It is not a seating restaurant. Things are kind of changing these days. We're seeing a lot of fast casuals without seating, and we're seeing a lot of these coffee shops without seating. And so that's what this particular is. The stacking spaces will wrap around the south and the east end of the site. One of the couple of items that I wanted to talk about specifically with that, we've been working with Mr. Buss and his representatives for a number of months now, looking at different iterations and looking at designs that they've given us to try and mitigate what a typical drive-through effect might have on adjacent properties. And so there's 2 things that they've done. The first is they've taken the order kiosk, which will be right here, which would be south and west of the building, and it's actually oriented away. Instead of being pointed south or being pointed east towards the homes, it's pointed west and north to try and focus the noise that comes out of the box, if you will, away from the residential. The second image I want to show you kind of gives you an idea, and this you have a copy of this in front of you, Planning Commissioners. It was something that Mr. Buss dropped off at our office while I was on vacation. He gave you a color copy. I couldn't scan it color, so you get black and white. I apologize. But what it shows is a canopy structure that goes over and around the pickup window that provides additional buffering, noise buffering for the uses to the east. So I wanted to make sure that the folks out there see this, both in the audience and that might be watching from home, and just point those particular things out. So that, I think, was important for us in making sure that this design kind of was in harmony with what's around, right, from a residential standpoint. In addition, you have 2 driveways that are being proposed. We do have the driveway at the south side of the site onto Elizabeth, directly across the street from the driveway. We all know that that's good planning, that's good transportation planning. We know the county as well would require that, so they were cognizant of that design. Obviously, this driveway is more than the minimum distance from the corner that the county or the state would allow, so I think that's designed properly. There's 18 off-street parking spaces, which is more than sufficient for a site like this, especially considering you'll have very little foot traffic or obviously indoor patrons, if you will, for the Big B. The second building then, 2,780 square feet, will be basic general retail. And of course, as I'd mentioned, they have offered to ensure that there will not be adult-oriented uses in that particular building as well. The most important then factor, I think it's important to, obviously, the planning commission to look at, but as well, obviously, the folks that live in that area, is the screening and landscaping that we've been working on their behalf, and that Mr. Buss and his group is offering. So you can see a picture of the wall. It'll be a decorative pour concrete wall along the east and south sides of the site with additional landscaping. The wall exceeds the minimum height requirement, which is actually 4'8", and it's 6'8". And then they're going to put a substantial amount of landscaping along the walls that will ultimately grow above the height of that wall and provide additional screening. This is kind of a two-pager, just so you know. So this would be the detention area, which would be at the south end of the site. Then they're providing a great deal of landscaping and buffering along that east side of that particular site. And then this is where their stormwater detention would be. So the landscaping and the screening, their street side landscaping and buffering, that meets or exceeds ordinance requirements. There's parking on interior landscaping. This thing will be landscaped and screened well above the minimum ordinance standards. So when you look at the special land use standards, similar to the first case this evening, we look at, is it in harmony with the adjacent area? I think having all of that additional landscaping and screening, having the changes that are made to the drive-through with the extra canopy, with the orientation of the box, I think that provides a certain amount of harmony for this use and ensuring that there's not a negative impact on the homes. The site will have sufficient access, parking, stacking spaces, so it will not have a negative impact, I think, on the existing roadways with design of driveways. These are not necessarily uses that are going to generate more traffic, in our opinion, than is already on those roads. They're there to take advantage of the traffic that is on those roads. Certainly the folks in the area will do it, but these are not destination uses where people are coming from 10, 15, 20 miles away that don't already come down Elizabeth Street or don't go down Hall Road. So no concern really there in that particular case. Again, talking about size, intensity, site layout, I think that the way it's designed, I think is sufficient with respect to the order kiosk being oriented away and additional screening for the drive-through window. And then the buildings you'll see, I actually put that first. They provided a nice kind of oblique aerial view of what these buildings will look like when all is said and done. And I think that will provide for a good-looking site. They're not overly tall, overly large buildings compared to the other commercial buildings in the area. The site plan itself, there is one issue, and that is the proximity of the fast food drive-through restaurant to residential. As you know, the ordinance requires that drive-throughs be 300 feet from residential. Now, this site was granted of that variance back in 2005, and so they are actually seeking the exact same variance that they did back then. And so from a site plan standpoint, this would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then if the zoning board grants the variance, it would move on along with the rezoning to the township board. Just so everybody knows kind of the process as well. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
that's fine.
Just mention what the variance should be and what they're asking for.
So that's fine. So what the ordinance is section 129301 requires that drive-throughs be located a minimum of 300 feet from any one family district. And so the properties to the east and to the immediate south are zoned single family or one family. And so that will be at its closest to 26 feet from that one family district. So it's a difference of between 26 feet and 300 feet that the variance would be requested.
274 feet.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Petitioners, do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
Not particularly, just we did the one second part of the landscape plan, we're learning a lot from the neighbors. Greg spent a lot of time with them personally. Thank you, Bruce. That's been redesigned from the original, and we are going to fence the detention pond, and the proposal is to bring the fence up and connect it to the wall so that there'll be a continuous barrier. The neighbors have expressed the desire and need to keep potential pedestrians and whoever out of the neighborhood, so we did that for a little extra security. And you can see we're planting the entire our east side of that neighbor's property to create a visual buffer as well. We found out tonight about drainage that I believe we've not completed our final boundary and topo inventory pending the outcome of approvals, but we believe that one of the neighbors that spoke has a situation where a ditch is really just dead-ending into where the detention pond of ours ends. So we'll have to topo that, and our thought, I mentioned, Bill looked at it too, would be to try, and probably through our property, not because they don't own that, but get that water out to the ditch that runs along Elizabeth Road so that water can move because it's ponding right now. If you look at the topo, it's all flat. That water has nowhere to go, so it's not surprising. No, other than that, I think Bruce covered all the
So
planning
would that
things.
take a modification of the site plan then?
No.
No.
The final engineering plan, you've got, and Bruce, if you want to bring it up, you've got a preliminary engineering plan with a package, and that's just preliminary, but we'll have to do a final engineering that'll be approved by,
County.
by the township engineers. We did contact MDOT, as Bruce mentioned, on our curb cuts to get their initial thoughts, which they thought those curb cuts were in line with what the requirements would be.
Okay, thank you. It's a public hearing, so I'll call you guys back up. Okay. So this is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open it up?
I move to open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So again, this is a public hearing on the site plan and everything that's been explained to you now. And so if you have any questions, concern, or comments, you can come forward with your name and address. We'll give you 3 minutes, give you one time each. And then the petitioner is kind of taking notes down, so any questions or that you may have, we'll call the petitioner back up at the end then, and they will answer those questions, concerns you have. So go right ahead.
Hello, once again, I'm Gary Morton. I live at 22316 Pullman. I've been there 46 years. Okay, my concern, I didn't get this straight. Supposedly the wall, now the trees are going to be on this side of the wall toward Pullman Street along 22316. Is that correct?
We'll get keep the petitioners taking notes. They'll answer everything for you,
I'm
okay? So
sorry.
just keep on going.
Okay. And then the only other big concern is the water. There's culverts on the north side of the street. There's no culverts, only ditches on the south side of the street. And the ditch that runs to the culverts is right at the end of Pullman Street. So whatever they're going to do with that, and the sewer is right there. The sanitation sewer is right there in that area. So that's my only concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Anybody else like this?
Again, Janet Rajichak, 22315 Pullman. My concerns are the same as Gary. We are on, again, two sides of the property,
Yep.
so it affects us the most. And I have to say, they have bent over backwards to do everything for our neighborhood. And we're good with all of that. But that ditch that he's talking about, culvert, I don't know what you call it, really runs adjacent to our front lawn. So we need to be more clear of, are they planting something there? Is it going, he's saying 5 feet, 10 feet. And again, they didn't realize that, so it wasn't really addressed till now. So that's really our concern, to really see what's going to be opened up there and what's, how close all that's coming to us.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Last chance? No one else? Okay. Is there a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? to the petitioner. You want to step back forward again? Would you like to address the concerns of?
Yeah, I'm gonna let, speak.
You heard the concerns of the community there, so do you want to address that, please?
My name is Bill Thompson from Seabrook East Laner, 1700119 Mile Road. These plans, as we design them, they'll be approved by the local, by your township engineer. We won't be causing any problems on the adjacent property. If we can alleviate drainage problems, we will. So that's about it. I mean, we're not going to go off on somebody else's property to fix something. But during the course of our construction, we got the sanitary sewer going in down that property line. We've got trees and a wall going, or the fence going in. We won't cause any problems. We'll make sure that the property that drains to us, that drainage is taken care of, and we'll direct it wherever we have to get it going.
Okay,
So, okay.
okay. Petitioner, anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, we got-
Just quickly on that drainage issue, we'll
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
look
no.
at it.
Microphone.
We'll take a look at it, and if it's just even and it's ponding, then we certainly will look at regrading or doing what it needs to be done to, take it to Elizabeth and through the normal drainage that the other occupants utilize.
Okay, thank you. To the commissioners, your questions, comments to
I have a question. You mentioned that you're going to extend the wall, I believe, south along Elizabeth Road from the diagram, and I think you said fence.
Fence, not wall.
Okay, what type of fence are you talking about?
It's required to be 6 feet. We haven't really got a specific design. It'd have to be approved by, in conformance with your ordinance. I think there's different types of fences that could be used there, but I have not come up with a specific design at this point or specification for it.
Well, part of my thought is that with the egress coming, entering and exiting that property there, headlights will be turning in through, and it'll be directed somewhat possibly towards residential property. If I off as Elizabeth Road, as they turn into the driveway. And I was just wondering, I appreciate you've made an effort with plants, some of the bushes and things, but I just would hope that whatever's considered doesn't, would take care of potential headlights, again, going into residential area.
Yeah, the homes sit well south of that drive, but they could go into the backyard. The idea was hopefully that the coniferous plantings that were there would diminish or eliminate any light going into their backyard.
I appreciate you've made significant effort trying to resolve any issues, and it looks like you're going to continue to do that. I just want to be sure, minimal impact to the residential property, I thought.
Thank you.
other questions, comments?
Is there going to be a continuation of a sidewalk going down Hall Road?
Yes, I found out that they had done work on that corner very recently, and actually the sidewalk exists on Hall Road.
Okay.
And that's why, if you look at our plan, and I didn't understand this at first, but our engineers knew this, you'll see that the two connecting sidewalks that go around the two buildings of ours actually are extended out to the right-of-way, and they will connect to that existing sidewalk.
All right. And then getting back to the wall and then the trees or shrubs behind the wall, and I'm trying to get to where the resident that was speaking. So then that 24-foot distance from the end of the property to the resident's property could be less because of the trees?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I think it was the gentleman on Coleman Street. Did you mention about the trees going on the other side of the wall?
On the detention?
Yes. Supposedly, they want the trees that are facing Hall Road on the far side of the wall. Well, along Elizabeth, we want the trees on this side of the wall facing Pullman. Does that make sense?
Which they are. So just to clarify,
Okay.
and I was just diagramming this, but if you look at that latest diagram right there, it's important to understand, this was the current approach I had, and I have to temper this a little bit with potential drainage issues. The sanitary sewer is being connected and run along that property line. So what I did was I created a 5-foot planting buffer on our side, and then a 10-foot sanitary sewer easement, and then the pond is fenced, and then that fence connected up to the wall. So we are planting, basically their side of Pullman and all on that property line for the entire length of our property,
Okay.
which would be about halfway through this gentleman's property, because his property extends south, but it hits at the midpoint.
And then the drive-through, then there's a house for sale, I'm assuming where the drive-through is going to be now? Is that individual in the audience that's selling his house? No, okay.
I think we did speak to him, but
I spoke to him, he
come up to the mic there.
pretty bluntly indicated he didn't plan on attending.
Okay.
And I don't know, I can't read his motivation, whether he's selling it or whatever, but yeah, so I've spoken to him.
All right.
And one other thing I think might be helpful for the audience, just by way of clarification, the detention pond is a dry pond, so it's probably going to be dry most of the time, but in a heavy rainfall event, it's there for the overflow. Now, as part of this, and again, I'm not the expert, but just to give a general idea, and then these guys can supplement it, when you put in the detention pond, because kids, it dips down, you have to put a 6-foot fence around the entire detention pond, and that's going to be, so somebody wanting to get into the property, to the neighborhood would have to climb a 6-foot fence, at least along our part, and the property that is to the south of our part, the bigger part of the lake down there, is going to remain this heavily treed, mostly dead stuff that's pretty nasty. So that would be, I think, pretty difficult to traverse. And then the idea was that, so there'd be a 6-foot fence to climb on Elizabeth. You'd have to walk through the detention pond, climb another 6-foot fence, and then you'd have to make it through this heavy Norway Bruce and arborvitae screening wall. And one of the residents, Mrs. Rachichak that spoke earlier, she and I walked out there and she said, their concern is that they've had this kind of heavy brush that discourages anybody. That'll get taken down because of the detention pond and the sanitary. And so the idea was to replace that with, there's literally several hundred tree plantings throughout the whole site and a great number there. So, it will be a barrier. And now it's on our side, the first 5 feet of our side, not on their side. So we'd be responsible for maintaining that. And as long as Janet or Gary and they would call and say, we have a problem, and we respond to it. So, but there was a conference call with Janet, myself, and Ron Jonah, and it resulted in Ron then connecting the fence to the cement wall. So that whole thing will be continually secure. Now, somebody could still get it if they really were out of their way to do it, but at least to continue to provide an aesthetic wall along this whole boundary line, and then some element of security between the detention pond fencing and the additional coniferous or, year-round type plantings that'll, occupy that screened area.
Mr. Chairman, may I add something? Sure. Thank you. Just for point of clarification, these detention ponds and the fences that go around them, the fences have to be non-climbable. So nobody's going to be able to climb them because the ordinance, the county's stormwater ordinance requires that they're non-climbable. You don't want them climbable. You don't want kids being able to climb into there. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's an important point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I know one of my colleagues always brings this up, but why it's on my mind. The lighting in the parking lot, is there any concerns with the residents that live close by? We talked about cars pulling into the parking lot, but we really didn't discuss the overhead lighting for the buildings.
Yes, we did discuss it with them, and you have an ordinance, and your packet includes a photometric study. And if Bruce, you want to put that sheet up?
I don't have it on the screen.
Oh, okay. So I have it here, but basically, there's going to be, if you could put the site plan up, Bruce, it should be in your packet, right? You guys have the photo?
Yeah, we do have it.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have it.
So you saw what we did. We lit both approaches, and then we have 2 interior lights, and we have 1 light on the back side of the dumpster. And you'll see that, that at the property line, there is 0 foot candles penetrating any of the neighbors except for the extreme, what would be our southeast corner. There's a 0.4 right at the corner and a 0.5 right at the corner. But we wanted to make sure that that drive-through and there was lighting back behind the building. But other than that, and I think that I don't think that, correct if I'm wrong, Bruce, but I think that complies with your ordinance. You don't want more than 1 foot candle, and we have 0 or less than a half a foot candle. And everything will be, the details are on there, downward directed and shielded. And there's no lighting, and this is just, there's no lighting at all south of our Elizabeth Road approach. So we put the light on the north side of the Elizabeth Road approach to keep any light as far away from those residences as possible.
I have a question. And this, Mr. Thompson, you may have to answer this if you know. If you're going eastbound on Hall and you turn onto Elizabeth and you want to make that left turn into the complex, is there going to be a designated turn lane there? Because the way it is right now, there is a second turn lane that you can get onto Hall Road with, but it's only like a very short. For those of you who drive it, you're probably familiar with it. So if somebody's coming off of Hall Road, does the road commission plan on putting a designated turn lane for someone to turn left into that complex? Because if not, during rush hour, that may become a problem. Does that make sense?
So I guess I can, Trustee Wade, I can certainly try and answer that. I think the most important statements you made is it would be up to the county to make that
Right.
determination. Given the fact that this is not likely to generate a great deal more traffic, I don't think that that's something that they're going to be looking for. I don't think it would be possible without widening the road, just from my experience of driving up and down Elizabeth.
Right.
And so if there's that concern, I think that the reaction would be no left turns. But the fact that the driveway is as far south as it can be and it's directly across the street from the driveway, I don't see that as being an issue at this point, but that would be decided upon review if the township board approves the conditional rezoning in the site plan at the engineering phase. So then our engineers will get their final engineering drawings. That will be forwarded to the county. They may require as well some small type of decel lane on Hall. There's a possibility for that. Those are engineering decisions, not site plan decisions at this point.
Right.
So.
Okay.
That's an excellent point. We originally had that driveway up even with our driveway, and then as I talked to MDOT, I never got a hold of, I think it's called the Commission of Roads, or what's it called? Department of Roads. I've not had a discussion with Department of Roads. I had a discussion with MDOT, who at the time, I was actually involved with what was Remsen's at that time. I don't know how old you guys are, but it's changed. But anyway, that distance was maintained, so we maintained it. And it was kind of confusing on if Department of Roads, I think now, is in their jurisdiction. But having the conversation actually with Bruce and just the patrons, Richard's here, the Big B is going to end up being a repeat customer situation. And so we've even though we moved that approach, we think anybody eastbound that's going to go to that Big B or even the other building that's there will go through Elizabeth and turn right. Not that it couldn't happen,
Right.
but as these patrons get educated, that's what they'll end up doing, I think.
Yeah.
But to your point, that stacks up over there. So it's a very good point. But until, as Bruce said, we go through engineering, we just couldn't
Yeah.
address it.
No, and again, I'm just spitting in the wind here. If the road commission came out and said, hey, this could be, because like I said, around rush hour, that traffic stacks out and it goes past, because it peels off into a turn lane.
Right.
And that traffic goes past where that turn lane is, you know, it could cause some conflict of people wanting to make a left in there. That would be my only concern, and I would think maybe if the road commission saw that, I don't know if they'd require the road to be widened and, you know, expanded turn lane, or, as you said, a no left turn in there between certain hours. I don't know.
Yeah, MDOT brought up the fact that it when they looked at that it could be signed, like no left turn certain times and things like that. But
Okay.
again, until we make formal application, which we couldn't because it was premature.
During the morning rush hour, when I'm sure that's when you'd get the majority of your business, it's not a problem. But 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the evening, that place does
Backs up.
That'd be my only concern.
Thank you.
I do have, Doug, you got anything?
Yeah, I did have a question going back to the fencing. So with the plan I have in front of me, there's a concrete wall to the east and to the south. And then there's the leg down that parallels next to 22315 Pullman. And then on the other side of Pullman, 316. Will there be a fence between the folks on Pullman and, you know, kind of between where the drainage stops at the top here of this? So that picture there looks like the fence goes up, makes a little hook.
Yeah.
So is there a fence from there north?
Right. It goes straight up, right?
Okay.
Turns left, goes straight up and hits the wall.
Okay. And then south of that would just be.
Well, south
trees.
of that, it comes back and becomes the retention pond fence.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're not, you know, we'd have to, my kid's fooling around. He's going to have to climb a fence to try to get in those backyards on Pullman.
Sure.
And then we've got as Commissioner Hubler mentioned, a lot of trees going in that's going to block the headlights.
Right.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
Thank you.
I just want to be certain, you know, it's not a big piece of property. You know, we're putting 2 separate buildings there. And there was no way to, like, take that Big B's and attach it to the proposed retail building in the front.
We looked at least a half dozen solutions, and that was one of them. Frankly, we went around with a lot of reviews. Actually, Bruce saw a few of them, and for many reasons, we felt this was the best solution.
And-
I think, you know, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Greg had mentioned the Hertz that we had. Now, this property will hold about 5,000 feet of building. If we just go and B2 it, what you'll end up seeing is a building 10 feet from those 2 property lines. There's only a 10-foot up setback from the east and the south. I can fit 5,000 feet. I know it was brought up, you know, more than once, and you're bringing it up that it is such a small site for 2 buildings, but I think you have to appreciate that the Bigby's only 600. So when you add the 600, the 2,700, we're 3,300. Just a straight B2, straight ordinance building is going to be about 5,000. So it's, you know, and I think a lot of that is because we moved the detention off site, you know, so we don't have that to deal with. But when you look at net gross feet, it's less actual footprint than we would be able to build by ordinance. So
I guess my concern, you know, to the neighbors, and you're all fine with that Big B's going where it is and the cars coming, you know, as close to your homes. I mean, that's okay. And I mean, I haven't heard anyone mention about the closeness to your property. And that's what I'm listening. And if I'm not hearing it, then I'm assuming that you're okay the way that footprint, the way it's being presented.
I guess how our feeling is, we've always known something would go there.
Okay?
And at least they're trying to accommodate as best they can.
Yep.
I'm happy for the concern about the headlights, but I will tell you truly, we live on that end, right?
Yep.
There's nothing that's gonna stop headlights. I don't care how high the bushes are. We get it every time somebody turns that corner because it's higher property. And these lands that are around us are lower.
Yeah.
So, and they're doing the best they can, but
Okay.
you can't have them, there's no way to eliminate that.
Okay.
It will help, hopefully. We are worried about that driveway back there, though,
Oh,
because
yep.
that is a dangerous corner.
Yep.
You know, cars, they don't stop for anybody. They zoom across 3 lanes when you're coming the other way. And having that entrance there, I'm surprised that the township would agree to that.
Do you have any idea in that proposed retail, what may go in there?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any idea in the proposed retail building, what may go in there?
I've not been too aggressively marketing it. We've been contacted, we were contacted a while ago from a credit union, and we've been contacted by a sit-down, fast casual new concept, but we're really, those would be 2 great uses, we think. But candidly, we'd look for B2 uses in that building. That's what we're hoping and expecting. There's not much in B3. I mean, we eliminated, obviously, adult uses. But from the retail standpoint, a lot of the B2 and B3 uses are identical. It's the drive-through it's that the Big B has that drive-through that throws us into the B3, really. It's not that
Right.
building. So we'd hope for something, I personally feel like one of the best benefits to the neighbors, and it was mentioned, was that Richard, who's going to be the Big B operator, is a 6 to 8 operation, which is abutting them. And with that wall exceeding what, is required and the hours of operation, we think it has minimal impact, we hope and believe, with those hours versus something that would be open, much later. And I don't know what the hours would be for the other building, but with the wall and with Bigby kind of buffering it, that's not going to have as much impact either way.
And Bruce, and I'm going to Bruce here, whatever retail may go in there under B2, you still have sufficient parking?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I could piggyback onto that, what was the number approximately for that parking, for that retail?
They provide 18 off-street parking
Okay,
spaces.
18.
Oh.
So that limits really what will go in there. Credit union would probably be the best.
Yeah, something like that would be good.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to say that I'm glad that the neighbors and the business did all this talking, before you come to see us. That's all these issues. This is what a community is supposed to look like,
Thank you.
right here. Very good.
Thank you.
Agree.
And cooperation with your planning department who encouraged that, and my partner Greg Buss, who spent a lot of time, which I appreciate. But thank you for that comment. We do want to be good neighbors. We were actually asked about some coupons. Where's Richard? But
Free coffee.
yeah, it's a rezoning, and we have to respect their properties and their values. And this one gentleman's been there 46 years. That's quite a while. So ultimately, I mean, I'm going to offer this because it's true. My belief is that when we build that pond, we're going to probably relieve some of his drainage issues. I also believe they're getting a lot of ambient noise from cars going 50 or 60 on M59, so our walls and our structures and our landscape could offer mitigation to the current, noise that's coming up M59 now. So.
Makes sense.
Anything else? Anyone? Motion?
Mr. Chair, just a question about a motion. So it would be pending the conditional rezoning being approved. It would be pending ZBA, because it's got to go to ZBA for the variance.
Right.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the special land use and site development plan as presented, pending ZBA approval and pending the conditional rezoning approval. So approval by the ZBA of the variance and approval of the conditional rezoning by the township board.
Correct.
Support.
Roll call.
Commissioner Kurd,
Yes.
Commissioner Hubler,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBartolome.
Yes.
Commissioner Green is excused. Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Wade.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sassen, yes.
Okay, so as you know, we're recommending bodies, so the next step will be April 16th. You'll come in front of the ZBA
ZBA.
right back here. I sit on that board, so you'll see me there, and I know that you need that variance, and that's what you'll be working with. So I'm telling that to everyone out there. You're welcome on April 16th. We'll be back here at 6:30. If it gets approved on the 16th, then it'll go to the Board of Trustees for final approval, okay? And again, it has been reiterated, thank you all. Appreciate the communication lines. It made our job easier.
Yes.
Understanding how the community feels, and you've taken the time, Mr. Buss, we've worked with you, and Ron, we've worked with you many times, and we're happy that everything's going to hopefully work out.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comments. If anybody has anything to say,
I'm Dawn Hallward,
I'll give it a second.
Oh, they're fine now. They're good. They're.
Anything on public comments? I'm seeing no one. Then we'll go to the report, the next report of the meeting from March 13th. If everyone's had a chance to take a look at that, if there's no additions or deletions, I'll look for a motion to accept and receive as presented.
Motion to accept.
Kurd supports.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then discussion of the next meeting, which is on Thursday, April 10th.
So we have a site with, I'll just talk about it. We have a site that was before this planning commission before 3 years ago. This is the PUD at Groesbeck and Elizabeth. It was a true mixed-use development, which included both townhouses and single-family residential. It had a senior component and as well a commercial component on Groesbeck. It took advantage of the pond that's on the property. It's about a 21-acre property. It was rezoned from B2 to PUD for that mixed use, and site plan approval was granted as well. 3 years on, they're, believe it or not, still in the review process from an engineering standpoint. And so their plans have expired, and they just want to come back and get them renewed so they can get their permits and get this project finally rolling. So that's what we have. It's a rezoning and preliminary plan approval, and then a final site plan approval. The ordinance does allow you to approve them, review them on the same agenda. And given that this commission's already reviewed them in the past, nothing changes as far as the design at all. So that's what we have for the 10th.
Okay, and I will not be here, so that guy, you get it.
All right.
All right, done.
Well,
Any questions, comments?
I appreciate the comments, and this is the type of participation we like to see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug. I agree. It's very,
Yeah.
very hard.
It makes
Things so much easier.
well for everybody.
Right.
yeah.
You know, nobody's
Do
blindsided.
your homework.
Not everybody does.
Yeah, come here after your homework's done. I like it.
Simple.
Nothing further, motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, gentlemen.
All right. Well, good team.